I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need you.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. And we're doing back-to-back shows. And I'm so glad to bring back a colleague that has been on the platform multiple times. He served as the captain in the Serbian army, especially under NATO bombardment. Mike Mihajlović, how is it going today, Mike?
So far, so good. Too young to complain. How about you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. The breaking news of the hour is, let me put this on the screen for you to see. Mm-hmm. Zelensky's chief of staff, Yermak, resigns. I know he fought against resignation, and I know there's a lot of pressure. What is this saying about, what does this portend about the future of the Zelensky regime and the war in Ukraine?
It is like a hydra. It's a hydra with multiple snakes on their head. So you cut one snake, the other one is there. So it is a system. That system is basically on mafia base. So Yermak was capo del tutti capi, consigliere della mafia. So he's just one pawn in that game. Actually, no, I'm wrong. It's not pawn. He's one of the capos there, and he's involved in corruption and all of that stuff. Is one of those hardliners. What is going really to happen? Fish is starting to rot from the head, and one of the heads, hider heads, start to roll already. There are a few more. So now it's internal struggle. What is going to happen? We can just estimate. Is it really? Is he going to pull the whole system like a snowball effect for the other corrupted Ukrainian officials? We'll see. Time will tell. But that system is rotten, definitely. And so when the system start to fall down, it will bring somebody else with him. He will confidently retire with his loot, to say loots, in summer, maybe in the States, maybe in the UK, depends, maybe in Israel, one of those three places. But obviously, Ukrainian regime is on the brink of collapse. So as I mentioned, that fish that is rotting from the head, the rest will follow. How fast? It's hard to say, but they have to try to replace him with somebody who is not so involved in corruption. But you know what? It's hard to find anybody there. So definitely Ukraine is the most corrupted country in the Europe after Serbia is right after. So it's a Serbian. I'm saying the regime in Serbia is corrupted as well. Are they most corrupted country in the world? No, but I don't want to say the country who is most corrupted.
Since you touched on Serbia, let's go to Serbia for a minute.
Yeah.
That's your homeland.
Yeah.
That's a place that you defended against NATO bombardment for a while. I mean, you guys held out against NATO bombardment for a while, and had you had more modern weapons, you could have done more damage, and you get the credit of shooting down a stealth bomber also. What was this comment about the corruption in Serbia right now? Speak to that.
Yeah, so the issue is that after fall of Milosevic, former President Milosevic, whoever come after, they're actually they're coming from the pond, which was created by the Western intelligence. They were just hand placed on this particular position, and whoever is coming after, they're all small players in the big games. So intelligence services, they created them. After Milosevic, he made a lot of damage to the country, but people who came after they actually destroying Serbia from inside. NATO couldn't break us. They can destroy bridges, plants, whatever, but they will never attack on land, because there is no chance that they can succeed. But what they've done, they simply created their own political figures. Both opposition and ruling party, they're all part of the same pot. They're all coming from the same pot. You can't find few people who are really honest. And this is the problem with those countries. Whoever come to the power, they start to steal. It's like organized theft. We have mafia that's ruling the country. Current President Vučić and his henchmen, they're mafia. They're simply mafia. They rule. They're robbing their own country. They replace with somebody who is, let's say, favor on the West. What is going to happen? They're going to play the same game. The system is rotten. That system needs to be cut. Need to be eradicated. And not only Serbia, but some other countries like Romania, like Bulgaria. All of those small countries, they need radical changes to bring really some people who will first look at the national interest and on their own private interests. In Ukraine, one corrupted government was ousted 2014, and even worse corrupted government came after. And it is simply repeating. All of those people are simply players in the one big game, intelligence game. Opposition and their opponents, they're coming from the same pot. Imagine how intelligence service, for instance, MI6 working. They will select and breed for years leaders of so-called opposing political parties. But at the end, they're all playing under the tunes of the same music. We are ruled by military-industrial complex and intelligence services. And if somebody from those political parties, which are now in those countries that I mentioned, and many others, they said, "Oh no, they're independent." No, that's not true. They're all part of the same game, one big game. Except, for instance, Russia and China. They're on their own. But all other countries, look at what's happening in Europe. I mean, those guys are idiots. Their leaders are idiots. They're looking first interest for Ukraine, then their own people. And Europe is sinking. When Biden was in power, he almost destroyed the U.S. But Trump is now trying to do something, but they're all playing under the same tunes, just a different speed, different rhythm.
So I was going to say, Vučić, is he more, because sometimes he tries to pretend that his bond with Russia won't break, but he's double dealing behind closed doors and with the EU and with the US. How long can that last before Russia shuts the door on him?
Hard to estimate exact time, but you know what? His time is his clock is ticking. His time is very limited. But who is going to replace him? I mean, opposition. They are basically the same. They're coming from the same pot. You simply don't have valuable politician that will put country interest and national interest in front of their own private interest. Vučić, he basically sold Serbia to corporations. They sold some corporations like Chinese companies, but he's sitting on the two chairs. He's trying to sit on the two chairs. But as far as he is useful for the West or for the East, he will stay there. Because they need somebody. They need somebody to play that kind of game. But his days are numbered. Eventually, he will be ousted one or another way, because people are against them. But also, people are manipulated. I know, in my own case, I believe in democracy in the late 1990s. That it will be changes, whatever. But you know what? Everything was just a BS. The bad left, and the worst came. For the bad father and worse mother. So that was the issue, and this is the trend that is going to continue. Russia is going to turn back on him, but he's trying to play them, for instance, for the ammunition cell. He's selling artillery munition to Ukraine through let's say, some third parties, and he said, okay, everything is legal, because they said, for instance, for the Turkish company, which has end user certificate, saying that for instance, munition will be only for the Turkish army or whatever. then that ammunition pop up in Ukraine, because that end user certificate is just a BS of the paper. It served only to show to the, let's say, government that, okay, so yeah, we are just dealing with this or that, and we don't have any responsibility. I mean, you and I, we can start the company, get somebody to sign that end user certificate that will buy ammunition, and next day we sell that to whoever want to do that. Of course, you have to be part of the game, because you need to pay your contribution to the big guys. And intentionally, I said the big guy. We know who the big guy was before.
So you're saying that corruption is systemic across the whole of Europe?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Corruption was always there, pretty much since let's say late 18th, 19th century, but sometimes it's been part of that corruption, all of those deals. When it's channeled to the people, so the people's standard start to rise, it is okay to say. I mean, it's okay because people can leave, majority of people can leave. But when those political leaders, when they start to grab 90%, 95% of all money that is coming to the country, all money from the trades, and when they start to launder that money, only for themselves, then it's getting worse. And you have that situation, for instance, in Ukraine. It's not the millions, it's a billions of dollars. 48 billions of dollars are disappeared somewhere. With that money, I mean, they can buy whatever they want of weapons, but their leaders, they simply launder that money in their own private bank accounts. But big chunk of that money went back to those sponsors. Congress, Senate, Parliament, name it. There are people who are getting that money in their own pockets through the campaigns, donations, or whatever. That is the best oil mechanism in the world. And it's untouchable. Nobody can even touch it. Untouchable and unscratchable.
So Ukraine is just a big graph for the weapon. Yeah, for the weapon suppliers, the kickbacks to the governments in the West, and they're playing. Do they recognize that they're playing with the lives of not just ordinary people, but entire countries, and that this could escalate globally into a nuclear conflagration, or do they just dismiss that?
They don't care.
The profits.
They don't care. They simply don't care. Nobody cares for the ordinary man. For the small guy, nobody cares. Small guy will be grabbed on the street and put into uniform with no training and dumped onto the front line. And if he survives, okay. If not, it is what it is. So there is nothing in those people's minds telling them they just stop that and work for the country. They want to secure themselves for the next 10 generations. And Ukraine is just the tip of the iceberg. That money that was channeled back is going to the private corporations. For instance, some company, let's say, making drones. They're buying components or drones from China on the reasonable price. Then they inflate 10 times, 100 times that price, and selling that to the other company that import that to Ukraine. And where is that portion for those guys who sign off those permits and imports or whatever, and who pay for that? They divide simply that money among themselves. Not you and me, but they will fill their pockets by their islands or whatever. So it is the best organized corruption in the modern times.
Mm-hmm. But do you think one of the main reasons that the European leaders don't want to stop this Ukrainian war and they want to publicly seize Russian assets is because they've already stolen most of them, and they're just trying to find a way to hide the theft, because open theft would mean the collapse of the Western monetary system?
So, I mean, I think that it's inevitable. If they really try to channel that money, Russian assets, to Ukraine, that will be theft. That will be international theft. And after that, nobody's going to put their money anymore into Europe. So all other countries will simply withdraw their money, and that is collapse. And you know what? Collapse of the EU is, there's nothing wrong with that. Nations should go back to their own currencies and take their own interests, not for some fictive parliament in Brussels, whatever, which neocons or warmongers. Whatever, mafia is just a kindergarten for Italian mafia, Sicilian mafia is just a kindergarten for the EU. Mm-hmm. They can even it's not tenfold, it's hundredfold, thousandfold of the theft. What they're doing. Russian assets is there, and Russia is going to retaliate. Russia is going to seize all Western companies, whatever is there, and it's about 300 billion. It's even more. But Europeans, they need the money. They need money to pay Ukraine, because Ukraine is collapsing on itself. So they need to prolong this war. It is a must to prolong this war. Peace is bad. Peace is simply bad for EU. If they prolong this war, they can try to flip money left and right. But peace is not working for EU. And honestly, peace is not working even for the U.S. corporations, because they're sending money for them. Mm-hmm. Therefore, not maybe directly, but U.S. military will ship whatever is there in their warehouses to Ukraine. Then it will place the orders to go to industrial complex for the new stuff. And $1 trillion budget, you can buy a lot of things. Besides, let's say, maintaining 800 or 900 military bases. It is one really probably the biggest game in the world with that. And there is no way that they can collapse Russia, not militarily nor economically. They're talking about that, but Russia turned to China. Now you have a polarized world: China, Russia, India, BRICS countries, plus North Korea, which is which is manufacturing for ammunition. So Russia, if by any chance Russia is not manufacturing ammunition, North Korea can cover a lot of them. Imagine that 6 million shells or 6 million tons of ammunition they can fabricate in a few months. How much ammunition can be fabricated in the West? Canada can fabricate 12,000 shells per month. It's enough for the week, not even for a week. One battalion can fire that quantity for a week. But in Ukraine, this is less than a day, ordinary day of fighting. So yeah, the EU, they need to find the funds. They need to do something. They will definitely try to steal. But that money, if they steal something, that money will not be given to Ukraine. They're going to split that money among themselves, and Ukraine will get maybe 10%, 20%.
So Russia, you spoke about Russian holding European assets. Mm-hmm. I spoke about this maybe a year or two ago when and it didn't make the news when President Putin signed into law that European assets could not be withdrawn out of Russia without a decree. A presidential decree, and from what we learned is that what Russia holds in European assets exceeds what Europe holds in Russian assets. So, if the European Union openly steals this, or Russia says all bets are off, and then could that be the precursor to the total collapse of the European Union, and not just the European Union, but dollar hegemony, because all of that is tied together.
First, that thing. The other thing is you're absolutely right with that. And the other thing is petrodollar. Petrodollar is something which is used for the trade oil, but BRIC countries that start to trade in their own national currencies. Mm-hmm. So if two things may happen, if the EU tried to steal the money, so the chunk will fell on Brussels, on Belgium. The other thing will be if the petrodollar fell, it means the game is over. Mm-hmm. It will be probably a very, very big war, because they need to. This is the only way how the West can stop it. So petrodollar and the Russian asset is actually less, but it will collapse the EU. But if the petrodollar is eliminated completely in the international trade, game over.
I hear that Russia and China now are settling most of their trade in yuan and in rubles. I think it's up to 95% being. And now, just a few days ago, India announced that it would tie its system, its financial system, to the Russian system, which is already tied to the Chinese system. Which the Chinese system is already internationalized. That's why you have Nigeria and all of these other countries selling oil. And doing trade in yuan, and maybe this is why the United States is after Venezuela, after Nigeria.
Exactly, I wanted to say that, because Venezuela is milk cow, and if the United States can dispose Maduro and replace complete leadership one or another way, at least they can have a lot of they can sit on a lot of oil. So something is going to happen with Venezuela.
And this comes out of desperation from the empire. This because people think that this is deep strategic thinking by Donald Trump and his group, but I believe it comes directly from desperation, because Venezuela has already been selling oil to China in yuan. They've already had a trade deal with Iran. They're already trading with Russia, and they're talking about having Russian, Iranian, and Chinese investment companies to come in and extract the oil and refine it for them. And that would be a no-no, because Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves in the world. And though it's expensive to extract, if Nigeria, think about the snowball effect. We see Saudi Arabia selling some oil in yuan. For Venezuela to sell that would mean that the U.S. dollar is no longer the world reserve currency, and this is unacceptable. And that's why Trump is now saying that he's fighting narco-terrorism. And
there's nothing to do with narco-terrorism. It's simply, what is the name of that U.S. general lady? I forgot her name. It's not Erica. Doesn't really matter. She's the boss of the Southern Command, I believe. And I looked through one of her interviews. She simply said, it's economic stuff. Narcos has nothing to do with that. It's simply they simply want to take Venezuela because the oil. Simply not about people, not about import of drugs or whatever. We all know who is the boss for the old drugs and that stuff, who allows that to be done. So better not to mention that. But this is simply economic pressure on Venezuela to take national resources, and prevent. Beside that, prevent anybody else to even try to step in that. Who is else? China, Russia, Iran.
And Mike, I was thinking about how the United States pushed this war in Georgia against Russia, and then they pushed the war in Ukraine. And notice that they strategically, before they did that, they got all of the nations smaller nations that traded with Russia, whether it was buying Russian military arms or whether it was trading like Libya and Iraq and all of this. And it seems like that they're following the same playbook with China, with Panama, trying to take the Panama Canal, going down and trying to undo the deals China has with Latin American nations, putting pressure on Brazil, then going into Africa, and now saying that Africa is Nigeria is killing Christians with nobody. This is to get his base behind him, because he said nothing about Israel killing massive amounts of Christians and Muslims and Palestine. So all of this stuff is strategic, and it seems like to me that these moves are more towards China when it comes to Venezuela and Nigeria than they are towards Russia. What do you say about it?
I agree. China is the ultimate goal, because China is a giant. China is production, so production of the world. And China is an economy that 50 years ago was nothing. Just the villages, mud huts, and that stuff. Look at China now, and China produced the stuff. How many things are produced in the Western Europe? How many factories you can see that working? We in the West, we developed a service economy. We are servicing things. Here and there you can find some production, but if you find something which is made in Canada or proudly made in the US or something like that, try to find in your home. I have a gloves. I have a jacket made in Canada, but it's the army jacket, and nothing else. So from the we have service economy, banks, and the like a money economy, and service economy, and on the other side you have China, which is production economy, manufacturing economy, but now they're also financial economy, money stuff, and also service economy, and their growth is rapid. So yeah, they're not anymore emerging; they're there. And they will take over U.S. if they even didn't took it already in all the other stuff. Nobody can take us from us banking because we have banks everywhere. But you can't live for the money, and money that we have, it's like a virtual. We don't have those like a printed cash. Everything is like in the banks or in some number. But when you look at other countries, they have a gold. They have like a hard supported currencies.
Yeah.
And this is honestly, I'm military expert, not economical expert. But for my viewpoint, yeah, China is emerging. China emerged as a world power, and ultimate goal. If U.S. Government can control China. Then it will be 100% hegemony on the world. But I think that time is a long time gone.
I do too. I want you to pay attention. I'm going to play a clip from KJ Noor, and he, he's an expert on Asian affairs, and I have him on the show from time to time. And this is what he said about any move with the U.S. to try to start war or an economic embargo, which the United States is trying to quietly push against China, Russia, and India. This is what he has to say. Now, the last question of the night to you is this. If war breaks out, we know, but I have to pose this question to you, because America is so dependent on China's export to the United States, and 93 to 95% of all goods on U.S. shelves and all the stores come from China or a subsidiary of China. When war breaks out and China starts an embargo on the United States, what will the economic scene look like? Because all hell should break loose, because there will be massive bankruptcy, massive unemployment, massive store closures, scarce food, scarce items. Where would this take America at home when war breaks out in Asia between the two superpowers?
Let's just think about that a little bit. I gave you a small idea when I said that, there are 1,500, almost 1,600 companies that supply parts that the United States uses for air-to-air missiles or air-to-land missiles, right? So that gives you a sense. That's in a sector where they don't want that dependency. But if you think about everything else, you're absolutely right. The United States cannot live without China. There's a fundamental sense in which we are like conjoined twins, right? And if you separate the conjoined twins, you have to understand that it's the other twin, China, which has the beating heart and the liver and the brain, right? Right. So what's going to happen to the United States? That's exactly as as anybody could predict. Our economy is going to crash. Everything is going to be difficult. You think of your average car. Your average car has 30,000 components in it. A lot of those components come from China. Think of your jet, has 300,000 parts. A lot of those components come from China. So if you cut China out of the picture, yes, we have to be ready for chaos. We have to be ready for supply chains to break down completely. And during COVID, we got a small taste of what that was like. Not enough chips. We don't have cars, right? Building materials are short. Everything is short. But simply the fact is that the United States, in its kind of monopoly stage of economic development, decided that it was going to financialize everything. What I mean by that is that the US corporations decided that they were just going to ask people to give them money or demand money from people and not make anything useful. This is what we call a rentier economy. You just collect rents, right? Well, how do you collect rents? Essentially, you collect rents because you have the force to coerce other people to pay you rent, but you're still not creating anything productive. They sometimes say that GM is a finance company masquerading as a car manufacturer, right? I mean, they were making more money at one point from their loans than they were from selling cars. So there's a way in which the US has financialized its economy in incredibly non-productive ways. And therefore, it needs to have a productive substrata that's providing it everything it needs. And so if it decides to go to war against its productive subalterns, against its engine, right? Against, you're going to kill the goose, right? That lays the golden eggs. How is that going to work out for you? It's not. It's an act of madness. It's an act of suicide. And so that is what the ruling imperial elite have on the agenda. Why do they think this way? They don't think. They just believe. They're true believers. They believe that they are engaged in a war of good and evil. As Reinhold Niebuhr was the kind of architect of the Cold War, he said that we have to risk the end of the world in order to prevent the rise of, the global South, of, socialist movements. They honestly believe that. They really, when you hear them talk to themselves, they actually say these things to themselves. And that is what's so frightening, that, this imperial elite is so out of touch with reality and so stuck on its ideological crusade that it would rather see the end of the world than the end of their power, because the end of their power for them is the end of their world. It's not the end of the world, but it's the end of their world as they see it. And they would rather end the world than let that happen.
Can't agree more. 150%. In the other words, I mean, basically, I have the same opinion. I use different words, different wording, but it is the same.
Mm-hmm. So with that said, and they're pushing war on every front. And they're losing. Look at what's going on the Ukrainian battlefield. Every time you turn around, NATO. I say NATO because NATO has special forces in it.
Yeah.
NATO
they're there. Yeah, they're there.
Yeah, they're losing village after village, city after city. Casualties are mounting. Russia is displaying new weaponry that the West can only dream about. Russia has advantages over them in missile manufacturing, artillery, tanks, everything, and yet they continue to try to negotiate as if they are in the position of strength and Russia is in the position of weakness.
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Well, they have to deal with lunatics. I mean, the last sentence that was said on that clip, they live in their own world. Look at those leaders, European leaders. They're living in their own world. In the U.S., majority are the same. There is a few sane people that know the situation. I think President Trump is he was fed with the wrong information. and I think he dispatched Witkov is the name of the negotiator. That guy is reasonable. That guy see the real situation. But those who fed American leaders are somebody that intentionally falsified situations. So you're absolutely right. We said that they behave like Russia is losing and the other guy, the West, is winning. I mean, those people are living in their own world, and how you can deal with those kind of lunatics? Just, I mean, let them talk, but situation in the field is completely different. And this war in Ukraine will be finished on the Russian terms, one or another way. But unfortunately, many innocent people on both sides will die for that. So that those corrupted warmongers and leaders can justify their existence in the West.
But do you think that Russia will take Kiev and take Odessa? I ask this question a lot because, to me, strategically, to leave Odessa, it would be a folly for Russia's strategic thinking, because that would leave France, Britain, the United States hoping to set up military bases in Odessa to keep trouble going, and also to cut off the land bridge that Russia could have to Transnistria. And if Russia takes Odessa and Kharkiv and the rest of, then that would make the rest of Ukraine an unviable, untenable state, and it would become a financial burden on America and the EU.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, it's a Novorossiya or Malorossiya. It's a historical Russian territories, and I believe Russia will take that one or another way. Either people, let's say, hypothetically, peace of Ukraine start tomorrow, and it will be elections. So the people, majority of Russian population, if they have a chance to vote for the secession from Ukraine, Odessa, Kharkiv, they will vote for that. But the West need this war to continue, because they hope, as I said, they have some imaginary thoughts about winning the war, so they will continue. And Russia will take Odessa one or another way. And what I'm also thinking, NATO should go to Ukraine, but how? Polish brigades should take Volyn and Lviv. Hungarian brigades can take Transnistria. Romanian brigade can take historically Romanian land there, Bessarabia, or that stuff. And that will be all. So Ukraine will stay in the land like a landlocked country. It's simply price paid for something that they for the betrayal of the West, because nobody care in the West. Nobody really care about Ukrainians. They're just expendable to force you, unfortunately, to force Western interest. And the West is very successful in that. So if Yugoslavia was like a test bed on a micro scale, how to do that. Then they started. Ultimate goal will be Russia, and after that China, because China also has a different nationalities. You see this. You see the pattern, proven concept. But if they break their teeth on Russia in Ukraine, everything fell down. So again, on that clip, marvelous, fantastic clip, they will sacrifice the world because they can't leave if they lose.
Yeah, so they did the same thing in the Sudan. They broke the Sudan up to South and North Sudan, and then Darfur, and because I think they want a lot of rump states. But back to Trump for a minute. People are saying, and I think a lot of people say that, Trump is pragmatic and he's trying to bring the war to an end. But my thing is this: I think more so that circumstances is forcing him, because he is looking at China.
Of course, that is the ultimate stuff. He's reasonable, smart guy. He see that situation when he get the proper information. You see that the war is lost. For the West, the war in Ukraine is lost. And he's trying to balance it. How to stop the war with the minimum consequences and costs for Americans. He don't care about Europe. Nobody cares about those idiots anyway, for those leaders. Not about people, of course. But for those European leaders, they live in their own world. But President Trump is trying to finish this war for the less expensive to the U.S. Because he's not going to sacrifice U.S. military for the European interests. His goal is China, to control China. Europe is the European leaders. They're like toilet paper. They're changing all the time, and sometimes you have somebody normal. But in this now currently those leaders are like I don't know how if they dive into the asylum and pick up them. It's look like that they pick up them from asylum. Anyway. Their leadership is nothing to do with the European people because people want to live normal life. Yeah, I always put the difference between the leadership and the people. So these are two completely different entities. If President Trump is able to stop this war, I don't think that for instance, if the peace starts tomorrow, it is not going to last for a long. Because Russia insisted that the root cause need to be eliminated. Nazi, NATO in Ukraine, and all of that stuff. When that is eliminated, then it will be lasting peace. Until then, Russia is just going to push slowly but steady. And many ask, why Russia is doing that so slowly? Yeah, because they have firepower. They don't want to sacrifice their soldier to take some position when they can simply level that position. That is the war of attrition, and the majority of Western cow strategists they don't understand it. They give in their minds they put Russian goal to conquer Ukraine for 3 days, and if Russia didn't achieve, they said, Russia lost. Imagine that set of minds. They give in their minds they set up what is Russian goals, and when they are not achieved, they say, Russia is losing or Russia is not good or whatever. I mean, that thing can show you what kind of people we are dealing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, hopefully the war will stop, but I have doubts. I really have doubts. In these circumstances, Russia will simply continue with their special military operation until their all goals are achieved. That's it.
Well, one last question before we go. What is it? Have you heard anything on the battlefield? What is it looking like on the battlefield? Because I've heard that it is looking dire for Ukraine and the Western world.
Yeah. I have every day. I have personal contacts with the people who are there. So, Ukrainian position is that they simply put it's not like a constant, continual line of trenches. They're like pockets. Ukraine is entrenched in the cities and in some the woodland areas. They're trying to hold it, but Russia is bypassing that. Whenever they see a Ukrainian position, they simply level it because Russia has the firepower, 100 times bigger than anything that West and Ukraine can do. So Russia simply pinpoint the location of bunker and level that bunker. Those like a city of Pokrovsk, Kupiansk, those are nodes, defense nodes. And once when they're lost to Ukraine, there is nothing to stop Russia until the Dnieper River. Everything is plain. So, Russia is simply doing that by 1,000 cuts to Ukrainian forces and NATO, because it is simply a level of war of attrition. And we all thinking about, when we said most strategists on the West think that, it should be like a big arrows, so millions of troops attacking that stuff. It's completely different. And those strategists and analysts, they can't find themselves to explain how that concept. Because Russia is doing what they're doing the best. So they will simply roll slowly but steady, not on one location. They will attack on 10 different locations at the same time. They will use overwhelming firepower to get it. And Ukrainians on the front line, they're suffering such a level of casualties. Last time that I checked, for instance, the body exchange, 1,000 Ukrainians, let's say 19 Russians. Of course, there are more Russians because they were evacuated. Russia is advancing, but it's 1 to 20, 1 to 100, 1 to 50. It's insane, simply insane what is going on there, and we don't getting information on our TVs. There's a reason why I stopped watching Western TVs. Actually, I don't want to watch TV except the weather forecast. But those news and that stuff, it's unbelievable what they're talking to us. When I see, for instance, some clips on the Twitter or some other media, our medias are charlatans, simply charlatans.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, thank you again for joining me.
My pleasure.
Time, man. I'm going to send you the video after the show. I really appreciate everything, man, and you stay safe.
Yeah, peace.
Peace. Everybody, listen. Thank you for joining us on this platform. I want to say to you all, as I always say before we go off there, do right by others, not because there's some material gain or because there's some accolades behind it, but do right by others because it's the right, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, remember, God Almighty is watching you. As my late, great, and beautiful mother would always say, God sits high on the throne of power, but he looks low. Know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that the true and living God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous, because that's the only thing that's going to get you out of here. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you for joining me on another edition of the Red Pill Diaries, and hit the like button. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a